Hello everyone, Mark Hammons once again for Q Live, and I am at the Q Live booth in the back of the exhibit hall once again, and I'm sitting here with one of Q's spotlight speakers this year, Eric Saliers. So this is Eric. Eric, say hi to everybody at home.
Hi everybody. Thanks
Eric,
for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. As I said, Eric is one of our spotlight speakers, and he is here to talk about a lot about the mobile technologies, especially in regards to special needs. So Eric, maybe tell everyone a little bit of your background with...
Yeah, sure. I'm a speech-language pathologist, and I worked in the schools for 6 years. And while I was working in a school district, I got to be an assistive technology specialist, where I did evaluations and consultations on individuals who had difficulties with reading, writing, and communication. And when the iOS devices started to come out with the iPhone and the iPod Touch, I started to consider those devices for children with special needs. And my first experience with an app for special needs was ProLoquota Go, which is an augmentative communication app for children who are nonverbal. And I got a chance to test it out even before it was available to everybody else. And so it was really cool to be able to use it. You get the beta. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I got to use it with some of my students.
Cool. So why would somebody want to use a piece of software? I know there's plenty of companies that are making, like I've seen it in schools and at my county office where I work in the special ed department, a lot of like assistive hardware. I worked with them to help inventory it, so I have a little background knowledge. So why would I want to use an app versus some of that other stuff that's out there?
Well, the traditional devices can cost thousands of dollars, whereas the apps can be a matter of $100 or maybe a couple $100, and that's much more affordable. And the interesting thing is that you still get just these really full-featured solutions in apps, so they're still very sophisticated. And I mean, for individuals who need to be moving around, communicating not just in their classroom, but when they go to the playground or when they're out in the community, then a mobile solution such as an iPhone or an iPad is just much easier to use than a traditional device that's really big and bulky.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a need to buy a $100 app like ProLoquota to Go. Say that 3 times fast. Yeah. So is it like a customizable type interface where, obviously a cookie cutter type of approach isn't going to work for, one student versus another. So is this something you can customize to make it unique to each individual learner?
Yeah, it's highly customizable, even though it comes with a default vocabulary of over 8,000 items.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you can customize every single one of those items. You can even add vocabulary to the system, and it's really important to customize the vocabulary for a particular user, because everybody has their own unique interests and wants and needs, and so it's important to specialize the app for that particular individual.
What can you share maybe a success story that you've either seen with one of your students or with maybe a teacher or student that you work with of using these adaptive technologies and maybe seeing the growth that you've seen come out of them?
Yeah, definitely. The first student who I used to beta test ProLoquota Go, he is a child with autism, and at the time he was about 8 years old, and his mom and his teacher wanted him to be able to interact with the kids on the playground, the regular ed kids, and they still wanted him to be able to communicate with them. So I set up a vocabulary page in ProLoquota Go, and it was all set up for soccer because he loved to play soccer out on the playground. And it was just so eye-opening to me to see him take ProLoquota Go on iPod Touch out to the playground playing soccer with the regular ed kids, and they just immediately came up to him and they wanted to know what he was using to communicate. So they had questions for him, and they wanted to know more about him. So it was just so interesting to see this technology be able to allow him to integrate in with all the other kids and not just interact with the other special needs kids.
So is this something like you said you programmed it to have it to work, so I press a button and then it speaks whatever I'm trying to say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in the application there are these buttons that have text and symbols, and then when you tap a particular button, then it will speak for the individual who is nonverbal, and there are these high-quality synthesized voices that will speak on behalf of the individual.
And going back to that example, he was able to adapt fully when they were. I can imagine like if somebody like that was out on the playground and then being inundated with all these people, but still having that ability to communicate and answer questions that you might not have programmed. How does that work with some of these learners?
Yeah, well, I was luckily right there by his side, and so I was able to facilitate the communication. But I think over time, I would want to see an individual like him be able to navigate throughout the app to be able to get any kind of vocabulary that he would need to communicate to his peers.
And then start programming it himself, so building his own vocabulary.
Exactly, yeah. And somebody like him who is really bright, he just is not able to talk, I mean, he could do that. He really could.
Cool. So you're also here, again, a spotlight speaker, but you're here with the Diverse Learners Symposium,
That's
correct?
right,
Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, it's a special needs strand for this Q conference, and there are just several special needs related sessions that are a part of the symposium, and I was honored to be invited as a spotlight speaker for it, and so I have 3 sessions that I'm presenting. I did one today on communication apps that included Proloquo to Go. But I'm actually doing a couple more sessions tomorrow about other applications for assistive technology and accessibility for the iPad.
Great. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about accessibility now. I've experienced the iPad. I've used some of the voiceover stuff and having it read to me. But I know Apple's really invested in making just the native software that is on the iPad really usable for people of all particular needs. So what's been your experience with some of the accessibility features inside of iOS?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of experience with VoiceOver. I have really gotten into more of the assistive touch features that are relatively new to the iOS devices. And so this assistive touch is a feature that helps individuals with physical and motor impairments. And so for somebody who has some fine motor difficulties and they're unable to do gestures like the pinch to zoom on an iPad, then there are these built-in features as part of assistive touch. So that individual really only has to use one finger instead of 2 to zoom in and out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so I've used assistive touch with some of my students with special needs who, just are unable to access certain apps because they can't do the gestures. But assistive touch allows them to do that. That's and the developer of that app didn't even have to program that in. It was all built in by Apple.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Right out of the box. So,
that's right.
Do you have an app problem like I do?
What's that?
Like too many apps, like you buy stuff. So what? Top 3 apps for assistive technology.
Okay, well, Proloquo to Go is by far one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then I really like Read to Go, which is a reading application. And for somebody who is unable to read text off of a page, then it reads it out loud for them.
Oh, cool.
And then one of my new favorite apps is called Abilipad, and it has customizable keyboards for writing with word prediction and voices too. So for somebody who has difficulty with writing, whether it's spelling or grammar or whatever, then this really helps them.
So when you say word prediction, like predicting the words that after I've already written a word, I know there's already the built-in like spell checking as you're writing. Is it a little more advanced in terms of forward thinking of the words that are coming out?
Right. So with word prediction, if an individual is starting to type a word, then it gives several suggestions of what that word could be. And it even takes it one step farther than Apple's built-in word completion. It's much more advanced. It can actually learn the words that you're going to be typing.
Oh, wow.
And that can be really helpful for somebody who has problems with spelling.
Yeah.
And then another app, I know this is a 4th one, but...
we only said 3, dude. Come on.
Oh, one more. So I actually have developed some of my own apps.
Oh, wow.
One of them is called ArticPix, and it's for children with speech sound disorders. So if they have a problem saying a sound like an S or an R sound, then this has interactive flashcards and matching activities so that they can practice their sounds and be able to speak like everybody else.
Cool. Is mainly focusing on iOS stuff, or what experiences have you seen with anything on the Android side of things?
I have to say that I love Apple, and I use iOS devices, throughout my personal and professional lives. I've hardly ever even touched an Android device, so
Okay.
I really don't know a whole lot about the apps that are available on that platform.
So how can we find out more about you? You on the Twitter? You have a website that we can maybe learn some more about you?
Yeah, I think the best place to go is my website, ericsaliers.com, and then you can get links to my Facebook page and my Twitter page and all the other social media that I do.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. And
nice to meet you.
If you get a chance, if you're still here, make sure you check out a couple of his Spotlight sessions tomorrow on Saturday. Otherwise, you'll have to go to his website and then start stalking him on Twitter to get more information. So
right.
once again, Mark Hammons with the Q Communications Committee signing off on Q Live.